You didn't stumble here by chance. You were led. Something in you, beneath the thoughts, beneath the doubts, has been whispering. There is more. I'm more. And you've felt it, haven't you? In quiet moments, in strange dreams, in that rising energy that comes when you hear the name Thoth and don't know why it moves you. Let me ask you something. Why does a god from ancient Egypt make your skin tingle? Why do symbols you've never studied feel more like memories than myths? Because you're not learning, you're remembering. And what if I told you that buried in the oldest tablets of wisdom, hidden behind symbols carved before history, is a technique, a forbidden one, not because it's evil, but because it was too powerful for an unconscious world. A method used by Thoth himself, not to ascend, but to unlock the soul's memory, to break through the illusion, to make you remember who you really are. Not a body, not a name, not a role, but a beam of awareness older than time. And once you remember, you never go back. If you're ready, we'll walk into the silence together, into the technique, into the truth. Because this isn't just ancient wisdom. This is the return of who you've always been. The Emerald Tablet, the Eye of Horus, the Caduceus, the Ankh, the ibis-headed figure writing into eternity. You've seen these symbols in dreams, in books, in flashes of curiosity you couldn't explain. You assumed they were ancient art, or worse, decorations. But what if I told you they were tools, not to teach you, but to wake you? Thoth didn't leave instructions in plain words. He encoded them in patterns. Because words fade, symbols remain. And deeper than all symbols, beneath all geometry, there is something even older. Silence, not emptiness, not absence. Stillness, awareness, source. Thoth taught in silence first. He brought initiates into chambers with no sound, no light. Not to punish, but to prepare. Because the soul doesn't awaken through noise. It remembers through resonance. You felt it before. That moment of stillness where the world seems to pause, and something inside you whispers, "This is it." That's not coincidence. That's contact. Because Thoth knew the greatest wisdom is not taught. It is remembered in stillness. That's why his true teachings were never shouted from temples. They were whispered through time, through sacred shapes, celestial alignments, and above all, the technique of silence. Not the absence of thought, but the space beyond thought. The space where you are not your story, not your fear, not even your name, but pure presence, awareness untouched, truth unshaken. And that's the first step of the forbidden technique, returning to the place before the noise, the space where symbols begin to glow and your soul begins to remember, Silence is the gateway, but breath is the key. In the temples of ancient Kem, what we now call Egypt, Thoth taught that the soul is not buried in the mind. It's hidden in the rhythm. Not in what you think, but in how you breathe. The initiate would enter the chamber, not to be taught, but to breathe in rhythm with the stars. Long, slow, still. Why? Because breath is the bridge between the seen and the unseen, between flesh and spirit. And here's what modern science is only just starting to understand, what Thoth encoded millennia ago. The breath is not just fuel for the body. It's a code, a pattern, a vibration. Every inhale draws in more than oxygen. It pulls in memory. Starlight. Soul fragments long forgotten. Every exhale releases more than carbon. It clears illusion. It clears trauma. It clears what you are not. And Thoth taught the initiates this truth. When the breath is mastered, memory returns. Not memory of events, but memory of essence. Who you really are, why you came, what the world tried to make you forget. That's why the technique he taught was not intellectual. It was somatic, embodied, felt. Slow the breath, still the mind. Let the silence rise, and suddenly you remember a symbol in a dream, a pull toward the pyramids, a language you don't speak but know, a voice that's always been there, just below the noise. That's Thoth. That's you, coming back to the surface, once the initiate was still, once the breath became rhythm, once the noise of the outer world dissolved into nothing. Then came the darkness, not the absence of light, the womb of it. A space so quiet, so ancient, that even fear had nothing to cling to. In this space, Thoth waited, not to teach, but to ignite. He knew, when all external identity fell away, when the breath returned the body to the stars, a light would begin to stir inside. Not a metaphor, a real light, seen behind closed eyes, felt in the spine, heard like music inside the bones. It is the light code, the pattern of divine memory that every soul carries, but it can only be activated in darkness. Why? Because the world will never let you see who you are. It's too loud, too fast, too full of masks. But in the still chamber, in the inner temple, in the quiet where the breath guides you, there it is, a flicker, a golden pulse. And Thoth would say, there, that is you, not your past, not your pain. You, the spark of the all, remembering itself. The ancients called it the Ka, the sacred double, the immortal thread that never forgets your divine nature. When this light rises, you do not just feel awakened, you feel known by yourself, by the cosmos, by the current that Thoth embodied. And once this light has been seen, nothing outside can ever dim you again. That is the heart of the forbidden technique, to guide you back into the original frequency, the state of being where remembering is effortless because forgetting is no longer possible. And this was never reserved for gods. It was never exclusive. It was given to you. You were born with it. And now, you're ready to see it again. If Thoth's technique could awaken the soul, if it could return memory, activate the divine pattern, and unseal the truth of who you are, why was it hidden? Because power without wisdom is destruction, and awakening without readiness is madness. Thousands of years ago, when Atlantis fell and Egypt rose, when light retreated into symbol and memory, Thoth watched humanity begin to forget. They forgot not because they were cursed, but because they were not ready. Too much noise, too much ego, too much hunger for power without love. So the technique was hidden, encoded in symbols, disguised in myth. whispered only to those who had purified their inner world enough to receive it. Because Thoth knew, this technique doesn't work when you want to be more. It works when you remember you already are. And now, after centuries of slumber, noise, and chaos, the silence is returning. The breath is deepening. The light is rising again. Not for everyone, but for the ones who are feeling it. If you've been pulled to Thoth, if you've been dreaming of symbols, if your body responds to words you don't fully understand, then you are one of them, not chosen. Remembering. Because the forbidden technique was never forbidden out of punishment. It was protected. Protected until now. Until the world had broken enough for stillness to matter again. Until you had searched long enough to stop seeking outside of yourself. Until now. Now it's returning. Through symbols. Through resonance. Through this very video. And through the stillness you're being guided to. And now that you've seen it, felt it, heard the hum of truth behind these words, you can't unknow it. You can only remember more. Remember. Take a breath. You didn't just listen to a lecture. You followed a thread, a signal, a frequency you may not have been able to name until now. You didn't find this video by accident. The tablet, the Kybalion, this path, they found you because you were finally ready to remember. You've always felt there was something deeper, that the world's noise didn't match your inner clarity, that symbols meant more than they told you, that words like energy, mind, vibration, truth, all pointed to something real inside you. You weren't imagining that. You were awakening to it. And now, you've remembered enough to walk forward as a keeper, not of ancient texts, but of living law. Because once you've seen how the tablet and the Kybalion speak in harmony, you can never unhear that music. You start to notice it everywhere. In conversations, in choices, in your reflection, in the pause before reacting, in the whisper between what happens and how you respond. This world doesn't need more information. It needs more alignment, more embodied law, more people like you walking quietly, clearly, and consciously, not with ego, but with deep-rooted remembrance. You carry the thread now. You are the continuation of a lineage that began in stars, passed through stone, and now lives in you. So if this stirred something in you, if it felt more like remembering than learning, you're not alone. Subscribe to stay on this path of remembering. Comment below. Which law or truth landed in your soul today? Share this with someone you know is feeling the call too, because this is not just a video. It's an initiation, and this is just the beginning. As above, so below, as you remember, the world awakens.